All right, good evening. The hour of 6 p.m. has arrived. Call to order this regular meeting of the Finance Organization and Personnel Committee. This meeting is being broadcast live on the City of Keene YouTube channel and channel 1302. The video is also streamed on the city's website and is posted on the website by the end of the next business day, barring any technical difficulties. Copies of the printed agenda are available in the wall pockets as you enter this meeting room. The public and other city councilors will be recognized to ask questions and make comments on the agenda items under discussion. After being recognized, all remarks are to be made through the chair. I will not recognize an individual a second time until everyone who wishes had a chance to speak. Anyone who wishes to address the committee is asked to go to one of the microphones in the room and identify themselves by name and address prior to speaking. Written comments from the public will be accepted at the city clerk's office until Tuesday at 1 p.m. Our minute taker participates remotely, so committee members, those members of the public that wish to speak, make sure you turn your microphones on. You need a green light, and if we don't do that, we will hear from above. And in some cases, they'll ask folks to speak a little louder because it doesn't pick you up. With that, we have a short agenda, but important business to do. We'll start with the first item, and I believe, yes, he's here.
I brought our leading lady tonight, too.
Good evening. Good evening.
Good evening, Dan Langell, City Assessor.
Carrie Chamberlain, Finance Director.
So here tonight, we're going to present a kind of an overview of the budget process, which is timely because we'll be kicking off the CIP and the budget process here with the City Council and with the public. We'll highlight plenty of opportunities for the public to be involved, to provide their input as well. We're also going to get into the tax rate a little bit. We're going to demonstrate how we calculate the tax rate, and if technology cooperates, at the end we'll do a live demonstration to show how both the budget and the tax rate affect the overall tax rate and the individual person's taxes. So with that, Carrie's going to kick it off.
All right. See if I can operate technology here tonight. So before we actually get into some of the slides, I just wanted to start by explaining kind of the baseline for how we generate both the capital and operating budgets for the city. Both the city's master plan and the council goals are really the backbone structure for both of the budgets. Both of those documents together, they outline the long-term vision, community priorities, and desired outcomes, ensuring that our annual budget decisions align with our city's overall direction. Every budget recommendation is evaluated for its consistency with these guiding documents. The master plan translates community values into long-term policy direction. It identifies needs such as infrastructure, sustainability, housing, transportation, economic vitality, and quality of life investments. Both the operating and capital budgets help advance these master plan focus areas over time, turning strategic vision into practical implementation. The operating budget funds the day-to-day services needed to deliver on both the master plan and council goals. Considerations include staffing and training to maintain consistent service levels, program support tied to strategic goals such as safety, sustainability, and community engagement, maintenance of our facilities, our fleet, and our infrastructure that support our ongoing operations. Our capital budget, which we're in the process of trying to finalize right now, funds long-term infrastructure investments that directly support master plan objectives. These projects often span multiple years. They include roads, bridges, stormwater improvements, public buildings and facilities, parks, trails, and recreation assets, technology systems, and equipment. This capital planning ensures that investments are timely, cost-effective, and aligned with our strategic priorities. Using both the master plan and the council goals ensures alignment with financial decisions and service delivery. It further ensures that our infrastructure needs and community outcomes are met. It allows the city to create a balanced, forward-looking financial strategy that manages risks and supports sustainable growth. So with that, we will get into the general fund. So this is just an overview of the operating budget process. So the general fund, which is the main operating fund for the city, those are the resources necessary for day-to-day operations. The departments that are included in the general fund are airport assessing, city attorney, city clerk, city manager, community development facilities, finance, which includes human services, fire, human resources, information technology, library, mayor and council, which also includes community events and outside agencies, police, parks and rec, and public works. The resources are discretionary and allows the mayor and the council to allocate to programs and services with few restrictions. We also have enterprise funds. These funds are self-supporting through user fees, not through general taxes. Those funds include parking, sewer, solid waste, and water. The capital improvement program, which I just spoke about, CIP, is updated. We actually look at this biannually, and we actually look at it on an annual basis, but we update our book biannually. Once the CIP has been adopted by council, the first 2 years of the capital budget are presented as part of the next operating budget proposal. The city departments submit an operating budget recommendation or their recommendations to the finance department. We then compile and calculate overall city budget impacts. We then have meetings where each department presents their respective budget proposals to the city manager and finance. The city manager then reviews the departmental and overall budget priorities and the impacts and makes necessary revisions to ensure that it complies with our fiscal policies. There are 3 important areas that we ensure of compliance with. That is the use of unassigned fund balance and debt service limitations, and then the property taxes, the property tax revenues. We have to stay within a 3-year average of the Northeast Region Consumer Price Index. The unassigned fund balance, those are funds that are used to offset emergency expenditures, downturn and collection of significant revenues or other unforeseen events. And those are restricted to between 7% and 17% of the sum of the total general fund operating budget plus the tax commitment for the school and the county. Our debt service limits are capped at a 5-year average of 12% or less of the general fund operating budget. Once the city manager ensures compliance with our fiscal policy, the city manager then presents the proposed budget to city council. The departments then have an opportunity to present their respective budget proposals to the finance organization and personnel committee. We have a public hearing, and then the city council adopts the operating budget with any adjustments as adopted by vote of the city council. So it's a pretty lengthy, involved process. And I want to thank Rebecca for her help in developing this slide for us. This just really outlines the number of opportunities that the council and departments it does presentations, that they do presentations so that the public can participate. We really encourage the public to participate so that they have an opportunity to ask questions, gather information about the various proposed budgets, and provide their input. I actually have as well, which I will leave on the table leading out, I made some copies of both the capital improvement program meeting schedule as well as the operating budget schedule, in case anybody wants to take a copy with them. I just want to talk a little bit about the fiscal year 26 budget. So I have 2 slides. One talks about the revenues, one talks about the expenditures. You can see that the largest portion of our revenues is the result of our property taxes. The property taxes, it's not just for city expenditures. We actually collect taxes for the school and the county. And then you can see that we have some other revenue sources, licenses, permits, fees, intergovernmental, which could be grants, our rooms and meals tax. We have charges for services, and then we have other sources as well, which could be some trust income, rents. Our expenditures, you can see that the largest portion of our expenditures in our budget are for community services. Our community services includes services that are provided from the fire department, our police department. So those are very important services for our community, and those services alone are 46% of our budget. And now I'm going to turn it over to
You
Dan.
were doing so well.
No, just for those that are listening in, all of these slides are going to be on our website fairly soon. So should they miss it, haven't been able to watch us, it's there for reference anytime.
Yes, and if, so anybody that's online, just to go back as well to the meeting calendar, you can see that if they go to keennh.gov/subscribe, they're able to get the meeting schedule as well.
So may I ask, all the meetings shown on your graphic are open to the public?
Yes, so we have council meetings, we have our finance committee meetings, we actually have some special
That's what I
finance
was
committee
curious about.
meetings. So they are all open to the public, and then we have a specific public hearing opportunity, which is on June 4th.
Terrific, thank you. Are we allowed to ask questions? How does that work? Okay. Yeah, well, for this graphic.
Sure.
Okay, I'm going to put my hand up to do it the right way. I'm sorry, this is all new to me. What is the municipal development services?
That includes our airport, our community development, excuse me, and our public works department.
Terrific, that's helpful, okay.
Excellent. All right. No more questions, I'll begin here. So Carrie just mentioned about 50% of the city portion of our budget needs to be raised through taxation. Again, this is probably very similar if you look at the county as well as the school. A large portion of all of their budgets is raised through property taxes. So in order to do that, we have to set a tax rate that everyone pays. So if you look here, we take, now this is set by the New Hampshire Department of Revenue. In the fall, they will set the tax rate. They'll take a look at all of the budgets from the three entities. They'll subtract any other sources of revenue to come up with that total amount that needs to be raised. So this top number of the equation here is the budget minus the revenue. That's going to be divided by the overall taxable value of the community. And of course, that's multiplied by 1,000, and that's how we get our tax rate per 1,000, which anyone pays on their assessed value. Now, we do bill twice a year. Your first bill is always an estimate from the previous year, so that's the one you get in June. So that's half of the bill. And then your final bill accounts for any changes in the budget or changes in assessed value. This is our tax rate in 2025. It was $34.37. You will see out of this that the school here is about 51% of that, the city's 40% of that, and then the county's 9%. We did take a house at $250,000 just to demonstrate what they would pay to each one of these organizations. The other part of the equation, obviously, is the assessed valuation. You're going to see the total value for the entire community is around $3 billion. Of that, the taxable value is $2.3 billion. The largest portion, of course, is residential. That's 48% of the total value. Commercial is 26% of that. Utilities is 4%. And then the exempt is 22%. Now, I often get a lot of questions is what's the percentage of the exempt property in the community? That, of course, counts for the building we're sitting in today, all municipal buildings, school buildings, county buildings, as well as your religious churches and any other charitable organizations, Keene State College. So it counts for all those buildings in that exempt category. One other thing to note is you see our values, for the community is at $3 billion, but we're only at 66% of market value. Meaning when we bring this up to 100%, that value will be increasing, pretty substantially overall, because we need to get to
They-
100.
Dan, do you want to take questions as they come up, or do you want to wait till you're,
I can do either, yeah.
yes, ma'am?
Vicki Wharton, 275 Water Street. Would you please define what utility includes?
Sure, so utility is Eversource, our electric utilities, as well as our gas, Lake Liberty.
Yes.
Payment in lieu of taxes, where does that, how is that, it's probably on the graph for revenues. What aspect is that of revenues?
So we've taken about $1.5 million annually right now for payment in lieu of taxes. And that is another revenue that would come off the total that needs to be raised.
So that's other sources on the revenues, FY '26 general budget fund? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay. And now, all right, looks like this may work.
Yeah.
Is that close enough?
Oh, 200%, please.
Please. Can you just shrink it down one?
So that one did, but not the rest of them?
That's too much. Try to make it work, but
Okay.
thank you. All right, so if you bear with me here. So these aren't exact numbers, but they are realistic numbers. This is for a demonstration purpose only, so please don't panic over any of these numbers. But this is really just for our demonstration on the impacts of both the budget and the assessed value. So if you look at this first column here, this is kind of where we say we currently are at. So the total money that needs to be raised through taxation, again, this is the school, the city, the county, is $78 million. The assessed value is at 2.3 billion. From earlier, we know to set the tax rate, you take one divided by the other. That's how you come up with the $34 per thousand. So what we did here is we put 3 properties and kind of demonstrated what those impacts are. So for a $200,000 home, you're about 6,700 for taxes. And I demonstrate again for a $400,000 home, and for a $2.2 million property. This kind of represents more of a commercial property, and you'll see why we did this in a second. So if we go up here and if we increase, oops, not that much. So if you see if we increase the tax, the budget by, let's say 3%, obviously you're gonna see your taxes increase, right? So the values didn't change, so what happens is your tax rate goes from $34 to $35. That's pretty straightforward. The question I get asked often is when I do reevaluation, I'm increasing the overall value for the community. And I also get asked, what do we do with all that extra money? Where does it go? So if we increase the assessed value here, let's say by 50%, and then all of these by 50%, you'll see no one's tax bill went up. What happens is the bottom number, the value, increased to $3.4 billion. The tax rate dropped from $34 to $23 per thousand. But the values, even though they went up, no one's tax bill went up. This is why when you're comparing tax rates, it's never a good idea because different communities can be at different levels of at market value. Keene could be at 50% of market value, and neighboring town could be at 100% of market value. So anytime there's a discrepancy between those two, your tax rates are going to be adjusted accordingly. So at a minimum, you should at least be equalizing and bringing all the tax rate up to market value. But I also want to show what usually happens during a revaluation. Even though the overall community went up 50%, and making these numbers up, so see what happens. So the overall value went up 50%, but some properties go up more than that. Not everybody goes up the same percentage. So you see what happens here is there's more of a tax shift, right? So property 1 went up to, their taxes went up 452 because they went up 160%. This one went up, a little bit more. And then the commercial property here actually went only up 40%. So even though it increased by about $800,000, their taxes actually went down because they went up a lower percentage as the overall community. When you start to see this in a large group of properties, when you start to see like large, all of your commercial property go up in value, but not at the same rate as your residential value, that's when you start seeing that shift happen. And so even if the budgets aren't changing, your residential properties can start taking more of that tax burden over. We could play with this all night, but from there, I guess we can answer any more questions anyone may have.
All right, questions? Questions from the public?
I did want to, just make one more note, one thing that I wanted to say earlier and I forgot. When we actually went through the fiscal year ¡26 budget process, the city's rate only increased approximately 28 cents. And our value only, or not our value, but our tax rate went up 2.16%. The overall increase to the tax rate was about 5.67%. So that, as I mentioned before, includes the school and the county as well. And when I mentioned that we collect the taxes for all of those, it's essentially, it's just a pass-through.
Yes, sir.
Tom Burton, 45 Dover Street. Question, I've been hearing other towns have been bringing their, the assessment of the homes up to actual market rate. And for the longest time throughout history, they've been way below market rate. And so the taxes are going up significantly. Is Keene going to be doing that, or have they been doing that?
So, yeah, so we are going through a revaluation this year. We have to do it as required by state law every 5 years. So last time we did it was 2021. So this year we will be bringing all the properties up to market value. And as I just demonstrated, depending on how much you go up in market value versus the rest of the community, as well as what happens in the budgeting process, that all dictates, what your overall taxes is. It's not just because values are going up that your taxes will go up.
Other questions? Dan, maybe you can just explain to folks how, the DRA kind of supervises this process. This is not a process that we decided we're going to follow in the city of Keene. Everybody's got the same process that they have to follow. Depends on what kind of business they have in the community, but
Right.
each step that gets us to that day that they send us the tax rate is pretty well supervised.
Yeah, and then Carrie can probably speak more to the process as far as, the setting of the budget herself. There's a number of documents that, finance has to share, as well as the school and the county, that helps determine the overall budgets, the revenues, and all that. And then when it gets to me, they're supervising the work itself as far as the valuation work, and then also the reported values. And then the Department of Revenue actually sets the tax rate itself. The city doesn't do that. And every community does follow the same process.
Anyone else? Counselor?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Ed Haas, 114 Jordan Road. Just want to say thank you for this education on it and explaining the different pieces. And I know you'll continue through the budget process with doing so. And these type of meetings and explanations are helpful to everybody. I think what will also be important as we go forward, and we love to compare things to other towns and what's happening here and there and how we're different from others. So I think it's incumbent upon all of us that we watch how the budget develops and what's in the budget and how that compares to other towns as we go forward. That's a pretty sticky, ooky process to try to understand what other towns and cities are doing, but that's how we'll better understand where we stand. So, thank you.
Can I just ask for one clarification? In terms of the person who lives in Keene anticipating this change, in terms of their evaluation and how it affects their taxes, this will not have an effect, they should not have any surprises from their insurance company. Their insurance company already does their valuations on a regular basis. So what we do is not going to have a bearing. They shouldn't get a letter from their insurance company saying, well, now that the city of Keene says this, your insurance rates are going to change. Completely different, separate processes, right?
Completely separate. I'm not involved with the insurance business at all. They
Okay.
usually look at a replacement cost, an exact dollar. We're looking at market value. But the
Their
insurance
own
company,
market
they're
value.
on their own. I have no say in
Okay.
what they do.
Great, just so,
Yep.
people, it's easy to start getting really worried about how this is going to affect everything else in their life, and I just want to make sure we're calming that particular aspect.
Typically, your insured value will be much higher than your market value.
Thank you.
Yes, one of the things that, that we have no control over, and you just hit it, was on replacement value. Okay, that replacement value all depends on construction material, all depends on labor availability. Just like we've had a number of projects that we thought they were going to be this price, but fact that costs of material went up and labor costs went up. So that defines what your insurance policy is going to be. It's just something that we have no control over. We're just following the law from the tax people.
Correct. Yeah, so we don't actually look at any insurance information when we're setting our values. We look strictly at properties, what they're buying and being sold for.
I just wanted to add a couple of things. One, it's very difficult to compare a city to another city or a city to a town. It's actually not a good idea in general, so I wouldn't rely on that as we go through the budget process, because while the fire department might be similar to a fire department in another town based on the number of calls and the region that they serve, the finance department might be completely different, or community development might be formed completely different. So it's really hard to find an organization that you can compare yourself entirely. And then second, I just wanted to talk about the city's budget in general is really made up of two things. Operational increases are very minor throughout the year. It's about wages, benefits, the cost of providing a service, because we are a service organization, or your capital projects. Those are your two areas. And the budget driver recently for the municipal rate has been the increases in the fire department. From fiscal year 24 to 26, their wages are up $1.2 million. The city council has added 4 firefighters twice over the last 8 years. And each time we do that, it's about $500,000. The other challenge is overtime. So, the last increase in personnel for the fire department was needed so that we could run the 3rd ambulance and staff the 3rd ambulance because of the number of calls we were getting and the overlapping calls. And some of the concerns that we were seeing from the fire department. And so that changed, that those additional 4 firefighters were added so that we had a minimum staffing amount, a number that would support running that 3rd ambulance. But the issue we now have is that there aren't firefighters above that minimum staffing number. So whenever someone's out on family medical leave or vacation, we're paying overtime. So our overtime costs are dramatically increasing. Last year, overtime in the fire department was over budget by about $400,000. This year, we're anticipating between $500,000 and $600,000. So really, if you look at the city's operational budget, we may change a supply line by $100 or maybe even $1,000. That's not dramatically driving the overall bottom line of the budget. It is basically the services that we provide and the staff that's required to provide those services. But what's driving the majority of the tax rate increase is what's happening at the school district. They're not receiving the funding needed to provide an adequate education. Some of the required programs are not being funded. Special education is not being funded at the state level. And what that does is it pushes the pressure down to the local taxpayer. And we're feeling it, and everyone's feeling it. And I don't know what the right answer is, because they need to have the funds as well to be able to provide the education to our children of this community, and that's very important. So it's a difficult balancing act, and I think here in the state of New Hampshire, as the cost of home prices continue to escalate, we're going to see more pressure on the residential portion of our community in terms of what they are paying in terms of taxes. But there's really only a couple of things that I believe you can do, and that is not invest in your infrastructure, which you will pay for eventually, or not provide a service, and that goes for the city, school, or the county. I'm talking about all portions of the tax rate, because cutting the budget $100 here or $1,000 there will not move the needle. And I know all of you know this, but I think as we move into the budget process and we move into the capital planning process, those are the things that we need to remember as we make these decisions, or as you make these decisions. We just make the recommendations.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor was first.
Great context. Jay Kahn, 135 Darling Road, and manager, that was really good context. That's what we get from a manager who's been in the business for a long time. I wanted to direct to the chair, and I think these are mostly for the assessor, but we had a good schedule for budget and CIP. I think it would be helpful to hear the schedule for the revaluation process. And a second question then is, this year's tax bill came out later than what we would have normally expected. There were a lot of questions in the community about that. So I think just understanding what tips it in one direction, that payments are due in the same year as the tax bill is issued, versus it's late, and I won't give the answer. But I think that the public, that's a common question and ought to get addressed. Thank you.
Sure. So I can answer your first question. I don't deal with the billing directly, but I'm sure we can answer a few on that as well tonight. As far as the schedule for the valuation goes, we have to value properties as of April 1st. So we're still looking at data of sales that are happening and trends that are occurring all the way up and through April. And then really at that time is really when we start doing a lot of our analysis work and stuff like that. We should have preliminary values ready, the hope is, by the summertime. Because after we get that information, we still have to go through the entire city and look at all the properties and verify that our data is representative of what's out there. So the idea is to come before the city council when we have an idea of what those preliminary values are, give an overall update of where we're seeing the community go as a whole, and some trends we're seeing. And then we'll actually send out preliminary notices to the entire public. Any taxpayer will get one with their preliminary notice, with an opportunity to come and speak with someone who was part of the revaluation to go over their assessment and the whole process. That should take place, we're hoping, in the August timeframe, because the values have to be wrapped up by September.
Thank you.
And as far as the
Carrie?
tax bill?
So the process to file all of the documents with the New Hampshire DRA, it's a very involved, little bit cumbersome process. And it's a kind of a puzzle. If you're missing one piece of information, or if one of the other components, so the county or the school, for instance, if there's a document that wasn't signed, I'd say that there may have missed some communication from the DRA, and sometimes it's difficult getting in touch with someone just because they're also very overwhelmed with their workload. So that slowed the process down with the tax bills this year. We thought that we were ready to basically have them set the rate for us, and then we ran into a roadblock because there was a form that needed a signature from one of the other components. So it kind of stalled everything for us. We were, reaching out to the DRA once, sometimes twice a day, trying to push things along, but, obviously, we're not the only municipality that they have to deal with. So, they worked with us the best that they could. Unfortunately, it just delayed the tax rate setting and delayed the tax bills being sent out.
The mayor wants to follow up. I'm going to let him follow up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And there were two thoughts here. One is related to the tax billing. The first bill is going to be then based on a previous tax rate and valuation, as it always is. But this change in valuation and the shift among the various parts, I'll come back to that because I think there's an observation that the manager made that I'd like to just comment on. But the impact is going to be on the second bill. That's when the public is going to see the change, and so that change is going to be a full year's change, essentially, in that second bill. Is that
That is correct.
correct?
Your understanding is correct, yes.
Okay. So just public beware. The second observation is, I think between the presentation and the manager, that the demand for residential housing has been so great, it has jumped the valuations on and what homes are selling for on the residential part significantly greater than on the commercial part. And I think that's just an expectation that I have. I think it's likely, we've read all sorts of articles about this, the demand on commercial space is not nearly as great, and so the valuations haven't changed a great deal. So when we see this change in valuation, it's going to readjust the mix somewhat from what we just saw in the presentation. And that, too, is something for us to just raise that expectation for the public that that's a reality not just for Keene, it's a reality across the state of New Hampshire.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
And I'm sorry, just the acronym, DRA, we've heard this several times. Sure. I'm going to guess Department of Revenue
Administration.
Administration, okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you for asking that.
I just want to comment on what we were talking about with DRA. A lot of the information that may or may not delay the tax bill coming out, we have very little control over. A lot of it's coming from the state. And they they got 279 different customers trying to do this. So as it started out this discussion tonight, this is a big circle of action moving together. Hopefully, it's all moving together to bring us to that point that we can present something that will give you a tax rate and be able to figure your taxes from it. The other part of it is that we're the tax collectors. The city of Keene, the town of Swansea is the tax collector. We get the honor of sending a bill and we collect it. But we have to pay to the county and to the school district their portion, whether or not everybody's paid their taxes on time. That's one of the business functions we have to look at as we prepare the budget and work through what has to be happening in a year. So when you're the big city, it hurts a little more when it doesn't flow as fast as it should, or you would want it to. So all of those things have to be considered in this 9-month process of pulling this bill together. So, actually, the gentleman in the back.
Good evening. Pete Moran, Myrtle Street. What are the components used to determine commercial value?
Sure, yeah. So again, it's market value that dictates the overall value. For commercial property, we're looking at sales, so we're looking at what land is selling for, what buildings are selling for. Now, commercial can mean a big box retail store, it can mean a restaurant, it can mean an apartment complex. So commercial, there's a whole range of different types of properties. So we take a look at each one of those. But for a commercial property specifically, we also look at what we call an income and expense value. So we're taking a look at not what the business actually makes, so not what they're selling or what they're producing, but what the rental potential is for that property, minus the expenses, and then we capitalize that. Because any investor is going to be looking at the same thing when they're buying that property. So there's a couple different ways we look at it, but ultimately we're looking for just the market value of that property.
Thank you. Vicki?
Vicki Morton, 275 Water Street. Thank you very much for your presentation. I found it informative. When I wrote my letter back in January, the issue that I was having was these really bad optics of Keene, New Hampshire being the second highest tax rate in the state. And I just wondered if, was there a collective acknowledgement within the city staff and/or the city council that when these rates went out, that this was the tag that we were going to have, being the second highest residential community in the state of New Hampshire? And why would folks come? Markham Amage is laid off, nearly 60 people. We have empty spaces. Houses are almost out of reach for new families. Is there not a way we change that optic, that we are not the second highest tax rate? And what makes us the second highest tax rate? I was informed at the January 5th meeting that the reason our tax rate is so high is because we have so much non-taxable property within the city of Keene. Well, every county seat in the state of New Hampshire has a lot of non-taxable property because they provide space for county and they provide space for courtrooms and municipal jails and airports, and there's practically a community college or an educational institution in each one of those, with the exception of probably Newport. So what makes us so expensive? And I saw the numbers. I think I understood all the stuff you were saying.
Sure.
But it still doesn't explain to me why we have the second highest tax rate in the state. Thank you.
Yeah, I can try to answer some of that, and Elizabeth may want to chime in as well. So part of the reason why the tax rate is so high, and again, it's a terrible idea to compare tax rates, is because our values are so low in comparison to other communities. You want to take a look at, and I hate this example, like Portsmouth or something like that. Sure, they have a tax rate of $12, $15 per thousand. You're not going to get into a home over there for less than $1 million right now. So really, if you're going to be looking at a comparison to be made, it shouldn't be a tax rate, it should be the overall tax bill. And then from there, it's the affordability of that tax bill. To me, that is a fair comparison. To compare tax rates, people love to do it. It doesn't really tell you a whole story. And again, different communities can be at different levels of market value. If you have two identical towns just like Keene, one's at 50%, one's at 100%, you're going to have two different tax rates. One's could be $20, one could be $10 per thousand. Neither one of those tell you the stories of what the real effect is, which is the actual tax bill. And that's really what should be looked at, is not the tax rate.
Yeah, I would agree with that. So if we were at 100% of value, our rate would probably be somewhere down in the 20s. And also, I want to add that there are personal decisions that are made in each community about how much you invest in different things, including your schools. So some communities are not investing in their schools, and you see that. And so it definitely is not a one-for-one. And so I think it's a combination of the decisions that this community has made in terms of what you feel is important to invest in, and then secondly, where we are in our equalized value.
Yes, sir.
Pete Moran, Myrtle Street. How persuasive is the city in encouraging entities to support the pilot program? I think some arm twisting could be in order because it's all for the common good. They require dramatic services and it's free, they think. It certainly isn't free. And I think all of them should be reviewed, including churches. And they have the handout at the bucket. Well, they need to do something to support the city. And it doesn't mean it's going to be 100% the value or whatever, but nothing is free. And if 25% of the city is exempt, and we can go through all that, but I think the city should give them a good twist and squeeze money out of these people because they're benefiting. They need to be part of this too.
Yeah, it's a fair question. It's one we're asked often. So to understand is these properties that are exempt, they're exempt by state law. There's nothing that we can do about that. They're exempt by state law, and there's no requirement to them to pay anything to the community. Some of these organizations don't have a lot of money, and if you look at the city's budget, we actually pay some of these organizations for some of the work that they do, in addition to them being exempt from taxes. So as far as twisting their arm or, trying to be aggressive to go after them to pay money, I'm not sure that's the right tactic. I can say that, when I started 13 years ago, I think we were taking in about $300,000 to $400,000 annually in pilot money. And working with the city managers over the past few years, we've been able to increase that to $1.5 million. So I think we've made a lot of progress over the years. And as new organizations come into the community and they become exempt, we're having those conversations right away saying, this is the impact you're having on this community, both positive and the effect you're having on the tax rate, and to see if we can come to some kind of agreement. Later on tonight, we'll actually be talking about another property that's going to be paying a pilot. So.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Hi, Ken Costa, 51 Railroad Street. So I just want to make sure, I got really scared when I just did some math here looking at our tax rate, and I just bought a place, and that's going to probably be the market value or very close to the market value. So when I just did that, it was a really eye-watering number.
Sure.
But what I'm hearing is when all the properties come up from, 60% to 100%?
Correct.
Which is what you're trying to do?
Yep.
Then I shouldn't be worried at this moment about that $34 tax rate. It's going to come down.
Right, you should have a tax rate in the 20s. Again, a lot of that's dependent on budgets
Okay.
and a whole bunch of variables, but yes, the tax rate will be coming down considerably to account for the increase in value overall.
Okay. I won't panic yet. Thank you.
So you mentioned that the state is in charge of the fact that the not-for-profits do not pay taxes.
Correct.
Correct? So does the state designate a process by which the payment in lieu of taxes happens? Or do we do that as a community? And if we do that as a community, do we look at how other communities do that as well to establish some type of parity? Okay, thank you.
I'll use a recent example. We just, and Dan is really good at negotiating as well, but we just worked with the hospital to negotiate a new pilot agreement with them, and we increased the amount that they are paying the city significantly. And we did that by looking at what they were paying in other communities. And then we came up with a square foot calculation and asked for, fairness in terms of equal payment. And so we did make a lot of improvement in that payment in lieu of tax arrangement. We also, and now I'm going to forget the name of the senior living facility.
Living?
Thank you, Covenant Living. Covenant Living, when it was being built, we negotiated a payment in lieu with them that is equal to the city's portion of the rate and the county portion of the rate, but not the school. And basically, it's because they're impacting city services and county services, but not school services. And so that's often the justification that we use. It is the same justification that we use when we initially set an agreement with Keene State College for their payment in lieu of taxes. And the last agreement that we negotiated with them maintained their payment in lieu of taxes, even though their enrollment had been declining and their impact to city services had been declining as well.
Go ahead.
Counselor Chalice, I've heard many times people make the same statement that nonprofit organizations are tax exempt, but that's not actually the case. And I just want to make sure, because I'm sure we have a lot of people listening tonight, and I'm sure Dan will correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's really religious, charitable, and educational, which is not necessarily every nonprofit for tax exempt status.
Thank you for that clarification.
Counselor.
Randy Filio, Eshwell Street, Keene City Council. I know I'm kind of been preaching this for a while now, but if you want to know why taxes are up, all you got to do is look at the state. This past year, they've downshifted over $500 million on the municipalities. In less than over the past decade, they've downshifted between $5 and $6 billion on the municipalities. We're not talking millions, we're talking billions. It goes directly to the property tax rate. And if you look at the bills currently facing us in Concord now, the downshifting doesn't stop. There's multiple bills now to downshift even more on the property taxpayers and municipalities. The whole goal here is to have us, like we are right now, facing city council, facing school boards, facing the county saying, what are you doing? When in reality, all you have to do is look up in the state of New Hampshire and see what Concord is doing to us. And with the bills, like I said, that are currently facing the legislator now, and they seem to just be fast-tracking with the governor's signature. So we can meet all we want, we can complain all we want, but unless we change what's happening in Concord, it's only going to get worse. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Pete Moran, Myrtle Street, you're absolutely right. Just a side note, House Bill 751, the only thing we can do there is go after the corner office for a veto. But at any rate, I think, getting back to the nonprofits, I still think, even if it's a penny on the dollar, all of them need to step up. Nothing is free. We're paying for all the facilities, all this, everything, and it's great. Keene has a lot going for it. But they need to do their part. And $1.5 million is a lot better than nothing. But when you have 21 million that's not taxable, let that be, all right, exempt schools, et cetera. What's the net? Does that come down to, say, is it a $10 million that may possibly come in? And out of that, maybe we can get $5 million instead of $1.5 million. I mean, I think we all see city services coming to the rescue for a lot of folks. And I think all of us are real happy to have quality. I think the fire department needs the support, the police do. I think I'm happy about supporting the city and the schools. The county, yeah, we got to keep an eye on that. They've got issues coming that way, and we could get slammed there too. And that's going to impact us big time in December. But again, getting back to the pilot program, I think there needs to be, all right, maybe if you don't want to use a club, okay, I get it. But I think you need to encourage them that they need to step up and do their part voluntarily, regardless of what the state says. I think it's for the common good for all of us. And if everybody's sick and tired of hearing about nonprofits, talk to them. I think that would be a good thing.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Tim Jordan, 275 Water Street. Just a follow-up to what Randy was talking about. There's some, what is it, downshifting? Is that what the term? There's some municipalities that are already pushing back on this very thing that's happening. And so I would encourage Keene to join them and push back. That doesn't mean you get dollars in the pocket, but the more municipalities that push back, the better chance we have of having some sort of positive effect. Thank you.
Thank you, Corey.
Yeah, exactly. So there's an organization called New Hampshire Municipal Association. The city belongs to that association, and we have a staff member on the board of that association. That group advocates for funding and for towns and cities, and also works to kill bills that are downshifting. The association has all communities in New Hampshire belong right now, so every city and every town belongs to the New Hampshire Municipal Association, and they are, in essence, a lobbying group for towns and cities.
Thank you. Tom, the lady behind you first, she had her hand up.
Hi, Jennifer Sizo, Fairfield Court. I have a question about the 22% exempt. So is there a way for us, an individual, to go and find out, like, is 50% of that the schools, or 22% of that slice of the pie county? Is there a way for us to figure that out, or can you tell us?
Not you easily, but yes, I could figure that out for you. If you want to give me a call, send me an email, I'd be happy to.
Okay, I'm just talking sort of general, because, we can't do any, we can maybe do something about some, but I don't think everything, so, okay, thanks.
All right, Tom.
Tom Burton, Dover Street. Question for the assessor. So I think it'd be great if Concord could pay its fair share. But I guess the question is, can they? And if they can't, and let's say they decide, or they commit to their legal obligation to do so, doesn't that just mean they're going to have to raise the money themselves? And don't property taxes just go up again, just from someone else?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
So Keene is making up for the difference of the obligations that Concord is not providing, right?
Are you talking about like the downshifting that's been?
Correct,
Okay,
yes, yeah.
sorry.
Not paying for the schools, the IEPs, this sort of thing, right? And so Keene's making up the difference by raising property taxes, right? So let's say that they did commit, right? Wouldn't they have to raise that money themselves? And if they did so, wouldn't they have to do that through property taxes or some way? In the end, wouldn't we still be paying?
So the state doesn't control raising property taxes. They would be providing additional sources of revenue, which would come off the total amount of money that would have to be raised from us. I mean, they would have to come up with another source of funding, through some other kind of tax or service like that. But they wouldn't specifically be raising taxes for residents of Keene or any community.
Okay. Not property taxes, but in the end, we'd still have to pay. I mean, we'd still be paying in the end, whether we're paying in property taxes or some other way. Whether it goes to Concord, it comes here, isn't it still a wash in the end? We're still paying the same amount.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it'd be a wash, but I do see what you're saying. I mean, yes, I mean, overall, the tax burden for a New Hampshire resident is relatively low and on a nationwide basis. But that doesn't mean that the property tax is affordable for everybody, and I think that's what the concerns are.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to expand on that actually a little bit. So if you think of like the room and meals tax, for example, we've seen some decreases in that tax, as well as some other like corporate-based taxes. As those taxes go down and we see residential properties get more expensive, because we're not getting that revenue from either people coming into the state for vacations and they're spending money at the restaurants and paying into those taxes, we end up seeing more burden go on to those residential property owners because we're not getting it from those other sources. That's where we end up seeing that downshifting to the people that own those homes in those communities.
Yes, exactly.
Second time, Counselor.
Second time. I just wanted to address what this gentleman said. It's only partially true. Some of the taxes, as Council just mentioned, rooms and meals tax. They were supposed to send us 40 cents on the dollar. They got it down to 21 cents on the dollar. When we finally complained, they said, well, we're going to change the law. We're only going to give you 30 cents on the dollar. That was the number one cut. Interest and dividends tax went to the wealthiest in New Hampshire. They decided they're going to cut that. That cut about $500 million away from us. Interest and dividends went to the wealthiest. They cut that, another $1 billion. The taxes they're cutting go to the wealthiest of the wealthy. And obviously, you've seen the Speaker of the House, and we'll talk politics here. He's a free stater. Their whole goal is just to cut, and they just say local control. All local control means to them is you collect your own taxes. If the state had done nothing over the last 5 years, done nothing, not cut the taxes, left them alone, our taxes would be flat this year. If they had done nothing. Everything they do is a negative to the property tax rate.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Two things. First, a comment, and we're talking about the state, and a lot of people don't realize how much money was coming through the federal government in that $2.5 trillion a year deficit spending. Just look, we get less money for police, we get less money for fire, we get less money for natural disasters. A lot of things that we had partnerships was, yes, the money came through the state, but the money is just not coming in there. And on a normal time, what happened last weekend, it would have been a major disaster area, and money would be coming in to help pay for all the overtime, all the expenses that was incurred. The second one for the assessor is, you hit on it when you stated that the businesses have not been appreciating as much as houses are. But for a lot of people just sitting here, everybody is looking, oh man, I'm going to get slammed with this assessment. Well, my house was assessed 5 years ago, and it's really, really cheap, okay? I know that I'm going to get slammed, okay? But if Tom just bought his house 6 months ago, he's at 100, I may be at 50. So he may not be getting slammed. Every house is going to be different. There is no collective saying every house in Keene is going to go up this much.
So that's not completely correct.
Okay.
Just because Councilor Powers bought his house 6 months later doesn't mean that I assess his property at that market value at that time. All the values are representative as of a certain date. That's April 1st, 2021. So regardless of when you buy your property, we're using base rates and values based on that rate. So if you buy a house today, you're going to most likely be paying a lot more than its assessed value, because I'm going to be valuing it as of April 1st, 2021. So everyone's value will be going up, significantly.
Okay.
There'll be different changes based off of, location, size, demand, stuff like that. But it's not going to be based off of different timeframes of when people bought the property.
Okay, thank you for clearing that up.
Mr. Mayor.
Second time. Maybe third. Who's counting? Jay Kahn, Mayor. And two things I want to get across. One is, I want you to know that in addition to the efforts that are collective through the New Hampshire Municipal Association, I take a pretty active role in legislation and talking with people that I have worked with in the past in the state legislature. And I'll give you, for instance, last year when the meals and room tax was about to go down because it was going to be frozen at a dollar amount, not at a percentage. I was very active in writing letters and providing testimony to say, don't do that. There was an important policy decision that the legislature made to move it back to 30%, keep it at 30%, and it had an impact on our revenue here in Keene and across the state. So that's one example. Another example is that I stay active in school funding policies. And just to give you the example there, the SWEPT, statewide education property tax, that is on the property tax. That is statewide. And there are some communities, believe it or not, that actually get more money through that than they need for an adequate education. More money. And it's because of the way that the distribution is done by the legislature. Doesn't have to be done that way. It could be done on a basis where Portsmouth, with its high property valuations, doesn't have more money than it needs for an adequate education based on the state formula. And those excess SWEPT dollars, what they're called, could be redistributed back through the distribution formula and benefit all schools in the state. That's another issue that I stay active on, because that policy change would be really significant. And just to give you an example, when the SWEP tax was put in place, it was at a level that was $6 per the property tax. Today, it's down under $1.80. And that's because properties have risen, the state has frozen the dollar amount, and those excess SWEP dollars are going back to communities that don't really need it. These are the policy changes that could have significant impacts on our property tax. And so as we try to push back, and I encourage everybody, in this case, I'm only one voice, and we are all one voice. And we can all collectively have an impact on our legislators. But it has to be a massive impact. They need to hear it from all of us. Do not cut business tax rates again. They are the lowest in New England already. And do not put caps on municipalities because we are left in the position of needing to sustain the services that our taxpayers want us to sustain. And those are some of the movements that I think we can be active in, and I just encourage everybody. We are all one voice, but collectively we can have an impact.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Again, Vicki Morton, 275 Water. Hopefully this is the last word and we can move on. It would be extremely helpful if there was a forum or a way to communicate just exactly what Mayor Khan just said, because I didn't know anything about this overpayment of educational payments to one community above and beyond either what they need or they requested or whatever. And if I knew that, and if I knew the details or who to direct it to, I believe you could have a community action activity that would try to make an impact and change. So thank you for bringing that up. I didn't know anything about that, and I think there are plenty of people. I mean, look at the state of New Hampshire stepped up and said no ice in Merrimack. The state of New Hampshire could also step up and change the way things are happening with the state budget and the downsizing and whatever, downshifting. So if there's a forum that can be created or some other way of sharing this information, it would be extremely helpful. And I know I'm going to speak for other people, but I know of people who would enjoy getting involved to try to make a difference. Thank you, and good night.
Thank you. Anybody else? Well, thanks very much for all who came. Those that are listening in, I think there's been a lot of information that's it's kind of known but not understood all the time, but this is a good description of the different things that are going on. And I think for the most part, you can be assured that there's a lot of people out there batting for your tax rate because we're paying it too. Thank you too.
You ready for motion?
Yep.
Move to recommend the acceptance of the presentation on city budget, capital planning, property tax rate overview be as informational.
Second.
Okay, so moved and seconded. Any further discussion here? None, all in favor? It's unanimous. Dan, you have the next item.
I do. So, next one should be about the service-connected total disability vet credit, resolution R 2026-07. If this committee remembers, I was here back in January, the 22nd actually, to discuss this. And as a result of that, it was recommended that.
Colonel, do you want to recuse yourself? Okay.
Yep.
Counselor's going to recuse himself. Any objection here? Okay. Sorry.
Okay, it's okay. And so we were directed to adjust the resolution. The main reason why is recently the state law increased the amount of the service-connected disability credit from $4,000 up to $5,000. And we're recommending the $4,000 to $4,300. The main reason why is that same veteran could also receive another credit which they no longer are eligible for, so raising it to the $4,300, at least for this time, keeps them whole, so they're not actually seeing a decrease. It is part of the fiscal policy of the city council to review all the exemptions and credits as part of the budget process, as part of the revaluation. We're gonna be doing that in a couple months when we review all of them as a whole, and at that time, I think you guys wanted to take another look at it, which that is the option of the council.
Okay, thanks. Discussion here. Members of the public? All right, a motion?
Move to recommend the adoption of Resolution R 2026-07 with an effective date of, as of April 1st, 2026.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion by the committee? All in favor? And it's 4, unanimous, 4. Next item.
All right,
Yours
so
also.
next and final one, we talked about exempt properties earlier, so this is one of our charitable properties in the community, Cedar Crest. They do a specialized pediatric medical facility and school, providing comprehensive services to children with complex medical and developmental needs. It's really quite an amazing organization. So the city and Cedar Crest had some preliminary conversations about the fact that they were exempt. Obviously, there is a demand on our services, especially police, fire, specifically. So obviously they have a complex, financial situation over there, but they did feel that they did want to contribute something to the community. And specifically, they have a close relationship with the fire department, and they wanted to contribute to that department. So we reached out to the fire chief and saw some advice from him from what maybe they could contribute to. And he mentioned Class A uniforms, which currently we don't have any money to budget for those, which really boosts morale and provide a great way of honoring the women and men of the fire department. So they're willing to spend about $5,300 annually as part of this pilot agreement.
Not a question, just a comment. And I want to thank Cedar Crest because they do struggle financially each year to be able to provide the services that they do. And when we sat down to talk with them about a payment in lieu of taxes, they immediately recognized their impact on the fire department, and they had nothing but really positive things to say about the service they received from our fire and ambulance department. So they were willing to just step right up and do something for them, and I think this is a good option because it is something that we have not been able to fund in the budget for a number of years. And this would make a big difference. So Kelly and the fire department put together a plan over X number of years. And I think, Dan, you settled on a 10-year plan.
That's right. Yeah.
So I just want to thank Cedar Crest and recognize that this is something that they didn't have to do and they probably can't afford to do, but they recognize their impact on fire and ambulance.
Logistics point of view, all our pilots go into the general fund. I'm
That's
sure,
correct.
develop a plan that this will be made available throughout the budget, or we be sinking fund, or?
Yeah, I don't know exactly how we're going to put this aside, but we will make sure this is a dedicated line because the pilot agreement does specifically say it's to be used for that. So it'll be dedicated in the budget for replacement of Class A uniforms for the fire department.
Any other questions up here? Members of the public? Your turn.
Move to recommend the city manager be authorized to negotiate and execute a payment in lieu of taxes agreement with Cedar Crest, Inc.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Further discussion, members of the committee? Seeing none. All in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you very much. Thank you, Dan. We are adjourned.